Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we got the pleasure of watching Lucky You're Not My Son, okay, playing in the Tier 8 French Premium Medium Tank, the original Tier 8 French Premium Medium Tank, and that is the AMX CDC, and it looks like Lucky is playing on this Latin America test server that Wargaming are putting out. And for everybody who doesn't play on the North American server, as far as I've been able to figure out, let's think about 6 months ago, or however long it was now, they centralized the server. There used to be an East and a West, I guess, North American server. Then they centralized that, and now they're testing out a Latin America server as well. I wonder how that's all working out for you, all you North American players out there. Has it improved the ping, I guess, if you're playing from South America, Latin America, whatever you want to be calling it, really? And do you feel that the matchmaker has gone better on the Central America server as well? Be interested to hear your opinions in the comments below. But I digress. Let's focus on the tank. And this glass cannon of a medium vehicle is very, very quick. It has an incredible power to weight ratio, this tank. We're talking about 35.29 horsepower per ton, and that allows the AMX CDC to shift around, get up slopes, go absolutely mental to get into position. And also, it kind of helps out when you're in a close quarters scenario of just having that grunt in the engine to accelerate quickly to hopefully try and get around your opponents. And the traverse speeds on this tank, they're not too bad. The effective traverse is 38 degrees on hard, 33 degrees on medium, and 19 on soft. Now, that's not fantastic, and that's because Wargaming balance out the impressive power to weight ratio of this tank, which is as good as kind of a tier 10 light tank, by giving it horrible ground resistances. And it still always amazes me to this day as to why Wargaming hides statistics of their tanks out of the garage. Unless you were to go onto a third-party website, you'd have no opportunity to be able to find out these hidden stats. And from the look of it, you think that the CDC was one of the fastest, if not the fastest medium tank in the game. And sure, it's not bad in a straight line, but as soon as you have to turn it, or especially when you get it onto soft terrain where its ground resistance is 3, that's absolutely awful. That would be bad for a heavy tank, let alone for a medium tank. Then the vehicle really starts to suffer. Nevertheless, the CDC, it was the first French premium medium tank, as I highlighted. Now we've got the Revolurise, and we've also got the Lorraine 40T that's back in the game now as an auto-loading tier 8 monster. So how does the CDC hold up today compared to how it used to? Well, when it first went into the game, it was rather nice actually. I quite enjoyed playing this tank. 10 degrees of gun depression, a nice pokey gun that has decent penetration on its standard rounds, although it doesn't look like Lucky wants to use any of his standard rounds in this game, with 212mm. And that was back in the day when most tier 8 premium tanks had kind of about 180mm of pen, and lots of standard tanks had 175mm of pen at tier 8. That was pretty normal to have 175mm of pen. These days, you're kind of not liking a tank unless it's got about 210mm of pen, and that's like a mid-ground, and some vehicles are starting to pack 230mm of pen at tier 8, and it makes all the ones that kind of have been left behind a little bit, like the T69, just feel kind of awkward. The CDC never really had that trouble initially, but I guess now, considering the vehicle hasn't received any love where it feels like every single other premium tank has received love, it kind of makes this tank feel a little bit awkward. But nevertheless, once you do get into positions and you shoot heavies in the side of their turret, it doesn't really matter if you've got no armor whatsoever. And that's because that's how this vehicle needs to be played. It is a glass cannon entirely, and it needs to be played where it's getting opportunistic shots into tanks that are otherwise preoccupied in the combat. And so support your heavy tanks like the IS-6B there. And while it's getting shot by the Oni, supplement its damage, or at least kill the tank before it kills your heavy by planting in a decent number of shots. Now, the rate of fire of this tank, when it first came out, was absolutely legendary. It fires 8.22 rounds a minute. That is absolutely phenomenal for a vehicle with 240 alpha damage. However, once again, it feels like the rates of fire of all of the tier 8 premium medium tanks have gone up from what used to be about 7.5 rounds a minute, was fairly respectable, to they've all just been bumped up to 8 rounds a minute now, which once again makes the specialty of the CDC just feel a little less special, right? And so I think you can see what I'm trying to say here. I would never recommend the CDC as a first pickup for a player, for a premium tank. I would only ever really recommend it for a medium to advanced player who maybe wants to really work some ridgelines and be a little bit aggressive. But all in all, I still think that even for an advanced player, you're probably going to do better with a Lorraine 40T now. And just that reward for when you get to do 1,200 damage to your opponents in a single magazine is absolutely phenomenal in that tank. But I've still got a bit of a soft spot for a Reveillerise. And I think the Reveillerise is also one of the best bangs for buck pickup you can get in World of Tanks. I think it's about 7,200 gold. The CDC itself is 7,450. If you can get this thing on a discount, it's still a great way to make lots of credits. We'll just have to see how many Lucky has made from the 2,300 damage he has already managed to pull off in this game. But yeah, if you can get a Reveillerise on a discount, you're packing 390 alpha, really cheap shell cost, a lot like this tank, 255 credits for its standard ammunition, but Lucky has been dabbing that 2 key a lot, and the premium ammunition on this tank, that's not cheap. What are we talking about here? We're talking about 4,800 credits per shot. We're going to have to see how much of a gold noob Lucky is going to be here. And he really doesn't need to fire these APCR rounds. But there's one thing that I did notice, and that is that you can't actually see Lucky's stats here. So it's clearly somebody who's bought a few premium tanks on a news server, a bit of a smurf, so to say, to try and pad up some stats. And so I guess the last thing on Lucky's mind is whether he's going to spend a few extra credits. All he really cares about is trying to pad up that delicious WN8 to try and create some kind of monster account, right? Well, at least, you know, arguably it's the equivalent of putting socks in your pants. It's maybe make you look a little bit more impressive, but does it actually really? Well, let's not go there. Okay, that was completely not family friendly content. Okay, I digress. Let's focus on what's going on right here, and that is Lucky You're Not My Son. Oh my word, this is getting too much. It's about to hopefully deliver the coup de grace to that Yak Panther, but it does manage to make it behind the ridgeline. And here we go. He's got a T-34 2G, luring all of the enemy tanks into the cap circle here. And Lucky is putting shots into the side of the lava there. Shut down. Now hopefully can finish off the Object 263, that new Tier 9 Soviet tank destroyer. The Yak Panther, bit of a low roll there, so the Yak Panther survives another shot. But that doesn't really matter with the fairly decent rate of fire that the CDC has. And this is where the tank is just absolutely golden. Wow, nice shot there. A blind one into the lower plate of the 263. Beautiful shot. Now up to a top gun, and what was looking like a fairly awful situation for the vehicle is now looking at least a little bit more of an opportunity for Lucky to get through this. So he's trying to fire into the back of the KV-3's tracks here, I guess wanting to take the tracks off. If he can take the tracks off the KV-3, then he knows that he is going to be able to surround it. And that's really how you want to fight against your heavies in your fast medium tanks like this. So Lucky's trying to find a shot through. Is he going to go for the hull now? He just goes for the hull with the auto aim, no longer trying to faff around with the tracks, but now he's managed to close the distance on the KV-3. Now we're going to see where that power to weight ratio. Is he going to try and track? There you go. Great shot. Oh dear, lumbering Soviet tanks with port turret traverse versus a rather nimble French medium here. Oh, this is only ever going to end one way. And because the AMX 65T on the enemy team is still in base, having picked up 4 kills in this round, that is going to allow Lucky to just absolutely surround this poor Tier 7 heavy and make them look really stupid. There's just nothing that KV-3 could have done. You could have been the best player in the world in that KV-3 with probably the best crew and also a large repair kit, everything. Maybe if you'd had a toolbox, then that might have changed things a little bit. But nevertheless, the KV-3 just gets absolutely torn apart there, and that's one of the beautiful things about playing in a medium tank, which is rather quick. Now this is a bit weird. The 112, maybe they disconnected, or maybe, I don't know, it definitely doesn't look like a bot. That's okay. Those are okay statistics for your first couple of 1,000 games. So it just looked like this 112 was in the rather unfortunate scenario of having disconnected. But irrelevant of this situation, Lucky is still going to have to contend with a full health AMX 65T with a very respectable player who's going to be coming in from the north here. So he's got to try and finish off this 112 as quickly as he can before the 65T manages to flank him. He's thinking about shooting that 65T while it's in the open. Great, the 65T missed. He's going to ignore the 112 now, hopefully, and just try and focus on the 65T before he makes it into the dip. The 112, sorry, the AMX 65T, not the best rate of fire, and the AMX CDC manages to link in 2 shots. Wow, Lucky You're Not My Son. So this name always gets me at the moment. Okay, is putting on an absolute textbook performance here of showing you how you can just get your damage out and how to make, you know, even decent players in heavy tanks just look rather silly. Positioning above the 65T, although the 65T managed to get one shot into Lucky, it puts one into the top of the turret there. And this is where that 10 degrees of gun depression is just absolutely phenomenal. The 65T puts one in, now Lucky needs to put two in, but he's also got 600 hit points left, which means he's going to be able to take one more shot from what looks like the 120mm that the 65T is using. One more shot down onto the hull, 65T pens him, doesn't matter, probably should have loaded a high explosive round there, and he will easily be able to put one into the cupola of the tier 8 French heavy tank. What a round here, nearly 8,000 damage and 9 kills in a tier 8 premium. That is absolutely phenomenal, especially one that kind of isn't flavor of the month. So Lucky picks up a Radley Walters here for those 9 kills, 2,189 base experience points. That's just absolutely ridiculous for a tier 8 tank. And over 8,000 damage undoubtedly secures them a high caliber and a defender medal for protecting the cap circle, mostly against that KV3. There's one thing that I absolutely hated about this replay, however, and that is Lucky's just low paying attention, awful, horrible usage of the premium rounds here, completely unnecessarily as well, considering this tank has very decent penetration, 212 on its standard rounds, which would have been more than enough for him to penetrate all of the tanks that he was shooting. And so look, he just manages to lose 74,000 credits by spending 240,000 on ammunition. It's just absolutely stupid. You could have spent like 15,000 credits on ammunition here and made over 150,000, but something tells me that Lucky is not bothered about the credit income at all, as this is a Smurf account that has only played a handful of games, but I wanted to feature it because it was the positioning, the plays, and it also shows you how to play your lightly armored tanks. And this is something that a lot of people always ask me, how do I play in a bad matchup, or how do I play my stock tanks? Because quite often one of the problems that you will have in a bad matchup is that there'll be a lot of tanks on the enemy team that will easily be able to penetrate you. And this is a good example of how you can play without having any armor, by either working a ridge or using the mobility of your tank. Lucky showed that good use of ridge lines supporting your allies can even allow arguably power-crept glass cannons like the AMX CDC can definitely still shine. And so ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and don't forget to let me know in the comments, if you're a North American player, all about what's been happening with the central server. Do you think it was a good thing? Do you think it was a necessary thing? And if you're playing on the Latin American server, what have you been experiences of it? And also, if you've been trying out both of them, do you feel that the servers differ in any way? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.